Welcome to another episode of The Man Space. My co host, Coach Kunle, and I take great joy and honor in week after week featuring different gentlemen from different walks of life to talk about scenarios and situations that impact men in a world where men do not have a place or a space to deal with these situations and deal with it in a very supported way. Today, our guest is going to be a dear friend and a longtime friend of the podcast and a fellow co-author, Patrick Long. Patrick, welcome to the Man Space.
Thank you.
Thank you. And today we are going to be getting to know Patrick and his journey and his struggles, challenges, triumph, and what supports look like for him. He is a technology professional, a father, an author, and a human being who cares about helping this world become a better place and help people heal and support one another. And as we get started, Patrick, first of all, I'm grateful that you are comfortable talking about difficult scenarios, situations, and life's challenges. Life is not fair. As my husband always reminds me, this world is not a just place, it's just a place. And how do we play the cards we're dealt, and how do we deal with the curveballs? And you've been dealt a very, very huge blow, and you navigated that with challenges, but with hope and with faith. And can you talk to us about what life was like before and what the challenge was? And then we'll go into how you've dealt with it and how are you dealing with it, because life doesn't end at the end of a scenario. We just evolve through it.
Yeah, and if you want to talk about what life was like before, I guess I'll kind of go back to I met my wife Melanie in, I believe it was 1998, and so we were together. We knew we were together for about 22 years, 19 of which basically we were married. She actually died just 3 or 4 weeks before what would have been our 19th wedding anniversary. And we had a great life. She was a tremendous person. She was, I was always a very typical guy, a very typical man. I kept a lot of things close to the chest. I didn't share a lot. I wasn't the type of person to really let people see some of the things, that I was dealing with or talk about it much. Anybody other than maybe her. But of course, she was the opposite, and I'm the type of guy, I have like 5 friends, right? Like 5 guy friends, I know a few more people, obviously, but, in my inner circle, my close friends, very few. She was the opposite. I mean, I couldn't even add it up. Must have had like 2,000 friends. She had so many friends. I don't even know how in the world she kept up with them all. And, it's funny at her funeral, people kept coming up, and other friends of this even pointed it out to me, which I'd already been noticing, how there were so many people who came in there and talked about how Melanie was their closest friend. And it's funny because she passed away, 5.5 years ago. It's, you kind of get over it, you get past it a little bit, but now talking about choking me up a little bit. But so we had a great life because she was such a fun person. She knew so many people, and she had just this incredible spirit, just so fun. People loved talking to her. Everywhere she went, she made new friends because she was just that outgoing person. So we were kind of opposites in that way a little bit. I mean, I'm a very cordial person. I got along with people, but I didn't really go out of my way making a lot of friends, typically and stuff like that. But now I have a huge number of friends that I still keep up with this day from her, and that. So we really had a tremendous life. She had a tremendous spirit, had so much fun together. We had 4 kids. She got diagnosed at the end of 2015, October of 20. Oh, it's almost up on the anniversary at the end of this month, October of 2015, with breast cancer. She had about a 3.5 year battle with that. So through that 3.5 years, battling the cancer, doing her chemo, kind of basically saw her kind of, what's the word, just keep getting unhealthier and unhealthier. It's taking its toll on her. she's in February, right about her birthday in February of 2019. She started having minor strokes and things, and we were kind of in and out of the hospitals, and that turned into about a 3.5, I think about a 3.5 week battle into March, when she passed away. And so talk about then to now. So when she passed away, I was left by myself with four kids and four young kids. My youngest was only 4 years old, 4, 6, 8, and 12 years old. So especially the younger three, were still young enough that pretty much depended on me for everything. So that talk about the challenge I had of now being a father, and I had to work. A technology professional, like you said, I'm a software developer, specifically a coder. So I had to raise four kids on my own while working a job. And if you want to really just kind of understand the situation better too, like there were no grandparents for the kid. Like my parents had both passed by then, and so had Melanie's parents. So there's no parents, grandparents, around to help out. I do have some family, some friends who some of them helped out very well, but with that, it's not quite the same. Friends help out, and I'm so I don't take any of this like I'm saying anything bad that they didn't do more. So because they helped out, and they helped out tremendously, and it did make a huge difference in my world. But they're not the type, they're not people like a grandparent would be who's going to be around all the time or every day kind of thing, so that made it incredibly difficult because it really was in so many ways just me by myself with the kids, and still is to this day. So it's been 5.5 years since she passed, but the nice thing is now they're getting older. The youngest is now 10, they're 12, they're 14, and 18, who's now graduated from high school. So they're a lot more independent, a lot more able to just take care of themselves. I have a little more freedom to get out and do a few things because I don't have to be with them every minute of the day, kind of thing. So, you know, um, that's kind of the journey right there to kind of sum it up as quickly as I can.
Hmm. Well, Patrick, I think you've been able to put down how the journey has been. And I know there are a lot of people out there also who might be going through similar journey. And I'm glad they are learning. And they are also having that awareness that they are not alone, and that's one thing that is very, very important. Like they say, the life itself happens and it's not linear. It's a curve sometimes, ups and downs. And I really want you to share with us how the mindset, how it changed from you having them, being two, I mean, you were a couple, and then you were together, but it happened, and somehow you were being alone. What has it been for you? Like, how have you been managing this? What has been a couple of things that you can share with people that could keep them going, even in the midst of the time, that we don't really like in life generally somehow? How do we create that soft landing for ourselves, starting from our emotions and how we relate with other people, and also how we find help in the midst of those challenges, Patrick?
Yeah, so to deal with it, first off, I'd say there was a phrase I came to use a lot in the year or two after she had passed, and the phrase kind of was basically you can't control like the thoughts and feelings you have, and you shouldn't even really try to. And there's certain thoughts and feelings you're going to have that almost make you feel guilty because maybe you have some anger about things that happened or how your life was. Let's be honest, like that's part of it. But so the phrase is you can't control the thoughts and feelings you have, but you have complete control over what you do with them, how you process them, right? So there really is. I mean, and I don't mean this from a I always hate what I call the rah rah people who try and act like everything's just always positive, but you do. I don't mean it that way because you deal with reality, but you do. I did always try to put a positive spin on things and always look at, and not every minute, I'd have my moments where I'd kind of wallow in self pity or anger, this or that. But, you just come back and you got to keep finding those anchor thoughts that can help you turn that around. That's how you process it, deal with it, right? So, like, one of the things that I got sad, like, why me, or sad that she was gone, remember, don't dwell on the fact that she's gone. Think about how lucky you were to have had her in your life, for 22 years. Changed me as a person. I grew so much, and what a phenomenal person, And so I, right off the bat, from the moment she passed, having 4 kids and just that dad kicking in, I knew I had to be strong for them and I had to make life positive. We weren't going to sit around and dwell on it. We were going to, and we actually had another little phrase. I was luckily able to take my kids to Disney World not long after she passed. And it was a point in time where I had the money, I could do it, but it necessarily wasn't the best financial, decision. I probably could have used the money a little better here and there for this or that, but I wanted to show the kids life goes on. We're going to keep having fun. And this little phrase we used was, we're going to keep living in the spirit of Melanie. Cause like I told you earlier, she was such a phenomenal person. She was so outgoing and fun and, love people so much. And I'm like, we're going to keep living in that spirit. So, you look at the positive and you say, okay, and then, yeah. And then beyond that, you're talking about reaching for help, put that positive spin, find those anchor things when you're getting down. There's always a way to say, okay, yeah, that's bad. Acknowledge it's bad. Don't deny it, but find a way to say, okay, like I said, like the example, just again, cause I can't think of another one off the top of my head. Instead of being sad, why me that I lost her, be grateful that I had all the years I had with her and the incredible experience that was. And then, be honest with yourself, reach out, talk to people. I have one friend in particular. He was in the United States Marines. He went overseas and, was over in like places like Saudi Arabia, Afghanistan. And, he has some PTSD and stuff. And we actually, a while later, reconnected and just started almost every day talking to each other on the phone and, being honest and just sharing. And, part of the thing too is just don't go get in a shell and don't not reach out. And you don't always have to be talking about your feelings and stuff. I mean, it's good to do that. Be open, be honest. But sometimes just talking to someone else, laughing, joking, talking about movies or sport, keep those relationships going. Like, you look for chances and times to have fun and look at the bright side of things. So I think that's a huge part of it. Just keep those communication channels open, even keep enjoying life, keep having fun with it. So I'd say a lot of those things, I dealt with it. And I don't want to be a kind of person who's sitting there plugging my stuff. But I dealt with it in the year after she passed by getting brutally honest with myself. And I actually wrote a book about the experience. And that's how you guys have come to know me, because back when I published the book, it took me off and on because I was working and raising kids. It took me about a year to write the book after she passed. But I really captured a lot of stuff about our life. And I was very honest about like marital problems we had, but then what I learned from those, how it helped me grow as a person, and the experience of what we went through with her cancer in those final weeks and her death. And then, things about our background that help, clarify, well, this is why I was dealing with this way, or this is how my outlook is. So, but writing that book and being so brutally honest about my own shortcomings, our own problems, how we dealt with them, and then getting to know so many great people from publishing that book. And yeah, I was on a bunch of podcasts back then when I was promoting it and things, and just conversations like this and being open and being honest and sharing people. And then also be open to listening to other people's stories, take in, just don't always make it about you. Take in what, other people are saying and what they're doing and what their experiences are. And I think one last huge point I'd like to make on that and just point out is a way to put a lot of that into perspective and think about how to deal with certain things is, you never know someone else's experience. Even if you have a very similar experience, even if I met a man whose wife died, and he was left with 3 or 4 kids, right? I can understand his pain and he can understand mine, but we don't understand each other's situations. Like, because you bring so much of your life and your experiences to that situation. So I realized kind of early on, don't be a know-it-all. Don't ever think you're telling anybody how to solve their problems. And that's not the point. What you're doing more is just being there, just talking to them, letting them share their own story, learning from it. If someone asks you for advice, give it. But again, don't think you can actually solve their problem. The best you can do is give them some perspective, share your own story, but the fact of the matter is, as much as I've been through all that, I can't tell someone else how to deal with it. I can understand their pain and I can feel that and I can sympathize and empathize with them, but it's not like I can solve anything for them. So I think part of the point of telling people that is to realize don't try too hard. You don't have to. Just be there for someone, and don't sit there and try and fix all their problems. Just be there with them, care for them, empathize with them, and just, share with them in the moment.
Thank you. Thank you for so openly sharing and being very vulnerable with what you went through. You and I have known each other for a while now, Patrick.
Mm-hmm.
And I am going through that same situation in reverse with my husband. And while it's a blessing that we have the time, right? While our spouses are slowly leaving us, we know they're leaving us. Mm-hmm. Others don't have that luxury. Suddenly, boom, one day comes and somebody's gone.
Right.
And grieving is different for different people. And crying, we live in a society where crying is looked upon as a weakness, but crying is truly a strength. It allows us to deal and balance the emotions, deal with things in a way that it gains clarity and perspective, and it supports positive mental health. It allows us to shed all the emotional baggage. Talk to us a little bit about the need for crying, whether it's alone or with somebody, and truly addressing the emotions without bottling it in, because bottling it in is toxic. And when we are going through loss and we bottle, then catastrophic events can happen to us, and then that leaves our loved ones stranded. So there's strength in crying, there's strength in grieving, there is true strength in being vulnerable. And talk to us a little bit about how you went through it and what you learned about yourself through that process of grieving, which is a little different from what you've been talking about.
Yeah, and I'm not a psychologist, so I don't know how to explain it on some deeper level, but there is something about the crying that, it's so funny. I watch people, and I'm sure you've seen this, and women do it too. I think men do it more. If they start to cry, they start getting upset. You can tell they're fighting it back and trying not to. They don't want you to see that they're crying, or, I've actually got a little choked up in a couple of things I was saying earlier in this episode. I'm kind of trying to choke it up and get over it just so we can keep talking, but I'm not embarrassed by it at all. And I think there are moments I bawled hysterically, like, are just out of control, crazy. And I shared a couple of those moments in my book, when I was just like collapsing on my living room floor, just hysterically bawling, in the days and weeks after she passed. So, and no, I'm not embarrassed by it. I put it in the book. I shared it with people, and I think I have actually now felt, because I see it so differently now. I've now felt it and felt where there's something about it that when you do that, you let it out, you do feel better. It does somehow, just it opens them up, cleanses. It's that moment where like certain things just come out of you, and it is actually helpful. And then I didn't really understand that or realize it. I grew up feeling like, oh, you shouldn't cry, be tougher, don't do it. But I just see it so completely different now. When I'm around someone and maybe they're talking about something that's upsetting and they start to cry, people immediately start apologizing for crying, and I'm always like, don't apologize. Go ahead and cry. Like, you're doing nothing wrong. This isn't something you should be embarrassed by. It's something you need to do, obviously. So get it out. That's great. I'm your friend. I'm here for you. I don't think less of you because you're crying. If anything, I probably think more of you. Because you're if you go through something like what I went through, this and that, and you don't cry, that's when I'd be worried, because there's probably something wrong with you as a human being. So yeah, it's therapeutic. It's just it needs to be done. It's not an embarrassment. There's nothing wrong with it. And deal with your feelings and don't be embarrassed or ashamed by them at all.
Mm, absolutely, Patrick. Deal with your feelings. Don't be ashamed. Don't be embarrassed about it at all. And like you mentioned, when you let it out, you feel better at some point. And you do it as well anytime. It makes you feel better. And I don't think it's normal for people to be judged for doing normal things. So it is normal to be emotional, to cry, to grieve, and to be in your feelings sometimes. And I know a lot of men have suffered, from what we have been, conditioned to for a long period. And we're glad for men like you who are really bold enough, courageous enough to share your stories as well. I want you to talk to us about the book, because that's also an important thing which you have also come up with, even in the midst of this whole situation. You tell us what the book is all about and what it is. Anyone who reads the book, what's going to come into the mind of the person, starting with the title of the book, and then later on we might also talk about how we can get the book. Patrick.
Yeah, so first I'll talk about the book itself and what it's about. So the book starts with, I mentioned she started kind of having strokes, and she had a very minor stroke, and I learned so much about strokes. Like, they affect different parts of the body, this and that. And when you've had cancer like she had, she actually had gone through multiple rounds of chemotherapy because her cancer was very aggressive, and all that, the cancer, the chemo, it all takes a toll to where, at some point her blood just started clotting a lot. That was the problem, having blood clots. But the first stroke she had affected her eyesight, and she had actually was backing out of a parking space at a store and hit another car, and she couldn't understand it. She was looking in the mirror, but she couldn't see the car, and we learned that the stroke affected part of her vision. And she had told that to a doctor at a checkup, and that's how they figured out she'd even had a stroke, because the stroke was so minor she didn't even know she'd had it when she had it, and then they figured all that out. So she spent like a weekend in the hospital, came home, and when she came home, she had another bigger stroke. And that the book actually starts that evening when she had come home. We thought she was going to be okay. The doctor said she'll be all right, whatever. So she asked me to run up to the store and get some stuff. I ran up, and she called me while I was at the store because she was having the stroke that was more severe and was really scaring her. So I raced right back home. We called 911, ambulance shows up, and then basically that's the opening story of the book. And then it takes you through the weeks following that of all the stuff we were dealing with in and out of the hospital, trying to fight this thing up to her death. But as I tell that story, as I kind of mentioned earlier, I go back and talk about things from our past, from my own personal past, being younger. And I do it as they're relevant to explain, show who I am, let the reader see me more deeply, show how and why, we were making decisions we were making, why we were processing things the way they were. So you're really getting to learn and see us on a very deep personal level, and just really be part of the whole experience of going through everything she went through. And, the thing is that in some ways this is sad. Like, some people might hear about that and think, well, why would I want to read this book? Excuse me. There's a little bit of crying. It's a sad story about a woman dying, and, with 4 kids, but what everybody tells me, and the way I wrote it, is it's actually a very uplifting, positive story. Because there's so much of looking at being grateful for the experiences we had, having that positive spirit, and looking at how, we're going to go on and thrive in our lives and not let this just, define us or make us, sit around and feel sorry for ourselves. Like, there was so much positive about it, and so much about, because that's the way I felt about it. And that's the position and that's a choice, really, in so many ways. People think what happens to you. I kind of said this earlier. You can't control the things that happen to you or the thoughts and feelings you have, but you can control what you do with them. And that it really is a choice. So much of it is a choice, and how you see it, how you deal with it. Yeah, I made conscious choices that we were going to be positive. We were going to go on and still have fun in life with my kids and show them, life goes on, and everything else. And so, but yeah, that's the story of the book. That's what it goes through. I got phenomenal reviews on it. I ended up self-publishing it. I had a hard time even reaching out to publishers. I kind of wish maybe I had looked for publishers more. There's that whole self-published versus published thing. Because I am confident it's really an excellent book, and I know that because of the feedback I've gotten more than anything. I've had people, and you can tell the difference between somebody being like, "Oh yeah, your book was good," and people just being like, "Oh my God, that was amazing. That was such a great," and people were just really, really enthralled with it. And I've read all the stats and I've learned this stuff being in the publishing industry that, first time authors and especially self published typically sell almost nothing. It's like you sell like 25 copies of your book when you sell it to friends and family. I actually sold over 2,000, which was not nearly enough to make a career as an author or make a living at it. But for a first time self publishing author, it kind of blew away. I had I haven't looked in a while. Last time I looked, I was up to I think 167 or almost 170 ratings on Amazon, and they're almost all 5 star. It's like 90% of them are 5 star, most of the rest are 4. So the book is done very well. It's gotten great reviews, but I think a lot of the reason it has, and this is really funny, is just because I was so honest and I just let out the feelings, and I put in stuff there that kind of embarrassed myself that I normally would never share. It's funny, I'd normally never shared that with anyone. Even there's one or two things I shared in the book that my closest friends afterwards are like, "How have you never told me that?" And I think Melanie would have been shocked because she wouldn't have thought I would ever shared some of those things, even with friends. And here I'm writing them in a book for the whole world to see. But I knew when I wrote the book, if this is going to be real, this is going to be powerful and good and help people, I got to be honest. I just, as an author, and I consider myself an artist as an author, you got to lay it out there. You got to let it go. You can't be afraid to hide from anything. And so, the book really tells the story and lays it out as honestly, and even where it kind of things that, like I said, it's funny. Here's the other side of that. One last comment is a lot of times you put those things out there, you think this is embarrassing, humiliating for me. And when you actually do that, it's the opposite. Like people appreciate that you did that. No one was judging me. People were like, thank you for being so honest. Thank you. So many people are coming to me being like, I'm glad I know it's not just me. Like, I've had a lot of those kind of experiences, thought, feeling situations, and it's so great to see that you're willing to be honest and open about it because now I feel like I can. And all the experiences about doing that, these things I thought could almost embarrass and humiliate me, have been completely opposite. They've been uplifting. They've been positive. It's been a great thing to do.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing so vulnerably, Patrick. And what we would love for you to do is share with our audience how they can find you, get a hold of you. We will be sure to put your LinkedIn link and your book link in the release when we release this episode. But if you can share with them how you can be reached, and then
Sure.
Kunle will do a wonderful job of wrapping this up.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. So just so people can see it real quick, if you're looking for it, if you see that cover, on Amazon or wherever, that's the book, Ordinarily Extraordinary. This is a picture that was actually, there's a scene I'm describing in the book. And I live in St. Louis, Missouri. That's where we're from. And there's a huge park in St. Louis called Forest Park. And the hospital we were in overlooks that. So that was actually the view I had from like the waiting room when Melanie was passing away. And anyway, we ended up using that image for the cover. So if you see that, that's the book, Ordinarily Extraordinary. I will one thing to anybody out there to be aware of this. It's been a few years now since the book came out. I think I published it about 4 years ago, maybe something like that. There's a weird thing on Amazon right now. I don't know why. When I search by the title, it doesn't come up. I don't know why. But if you search by my name, it does. So Patrick P. Long. If you go on Amazon, type in Patrick P. Long, it kind of finds me, and that book will pop right up. So that's the best way to find if you're looking for the book on Amazon. Just type in by my name, Patrick P. Long, and it'll come up that way. I also have a website, which is basically just patrickplong.com. And if anybody did want to reach out to me or get hold of me for any reason, patrickp@patrickplong.com is my email. So, yeah, that's how to get hold of me. The website, patrickplong.com, or, look for the book under my name on Amazon.
Thank you so much, Patrick. Before I round off everything, I just want a word from you. It might be a sentence for men out there who are going through stuff, and even women as well. Just one word of encouragement for them in the middle of the challenges when the barrage of thoughts are coming to their mind and it seems in their shoulders. What is that word, or what's that final word you want to share with people before we wrap up?
If I had to wrap up things in a word off the top of my head, I might think of a better one later, but I'd say choice. Keep in mind that everything is a choice, and just keep choosing. You have a choice on how you look at things, how you deal with things, how you process them, and making those choices and those good, just keep choosing to not let life beat you. Keep going out there and thriving, and just, no matter what it is, like life may change in a way you didn't anticipate, you don't want, but so what? Make a good choice and make it work for you. So yeah, if I had to sum everything up in one word of that thing you want to remember that you have the power over, choice. That's the one weapon you have. That's the one greatest tool you have in your life is your own choices, which come from your mental attitude, obviously, but choice would be the word.
So much, Patrick. It's been a wonderful time having you on the man's space, sharing your story, sharing your experience, and laying them point blank right in here. Appreciate your time. And for everyone who is watching, you could ordinarily extraordinary on Amazon. So that's the man's space for today. And Dr. Kaz and I will come back. Wonderful guest, just as we do back to back, in order to bring that safe space for men to share, to care, and have that confidence to share ability to be confident in building themselves and in the society generally. Till next time that we meet, keep following us and keep engaging our post. Cheers and bye for now.